Okay, so this week's episode of Free Dive to the Future, episode 5, was such a delightful episode, especially for Sosuke's character, because I was worried how they were going to treat him simply because he's not swimming, he's not doing anything currently right now except for being like a mentor or an overseer for Iwatobi and Samezuka's students. But this gives me hope that KyoAni has not abandoned Sosuke. Now we know that this episode focused on the swimming camp between Samezuka, Iwatobi, and the other school, with the character that Momotaro faced against in Take Your Marks. If you saw that movie, if you were lucky enough to watch the sub version by Funimation back on March 14th, this character went against Momotaro at, what do you call it, ping pong for a Kapikara plush toy, and Momotaro won it. So he was in this episode as well. So there was funny moments between him and Momotaro. While they're having the training camp, we have where Sosuke is coming in as alumni to help coach, as well as Natsuya. So again, if you saw Take Your Marks, these two do know each other. My bad. They do know each other from then. They only had a small conversation back in the movie, but in this episode, they actually had like a full-blown discussion about like their dreams and aspirations, and low-key a little bit about Rin without actually saying his name. Of course, Sosuke knew who Natsuyo was talking about. So for the most part, like focusing on Iwatobi, we have where Romeo, one of the newer characters in the Iwatobi swim club, he is a good swimmer, but before they mentioned what was his problem, you could obviously tell something was wrong with him, because he started off late, jumping off the podium, and he kept looking side to side like he was worried about somebody watching him, or he was frightful of swimming. So you're wondering, what is up, what's his deal, why is he so scared to get into the water to swim? We come to find out that he and Shizuru attended the same middle school, so my guess is he spent most of his childhood growing up in New York until his family moved back to Japan, and that's where he met Shizuru. And during one of their most important swim meets in middle school, one of their competitions, he had a false start, so he most likely jumped before the mark went off, and of course their team was disqualified. So he's actually very scared because of that moment. He thinks he's going to screw up again. But I really liked how Rei and Nagisa really stepped up in terms of, they still keep their personality, they still keep their characteristics that we've known them for the past 2 seasons, but we saw a clear maturity that basically was passed on to them from their predecessors, Makoto and Haru. You know, Makoto being the original captain of the swim team, Rei taking on that legacy now. And the fact that they were reassuring Romeo, saying that there's nothing to worry about, that they have their back, and Rei giving him some, feedback and experience of his first time swimming and how difficult it was for him. And it just really warmed my heart to show that these two are willing to go so far to just reassure their team, their younger teammates, and to show this level of experience, this wisdom that they gained for being on this team for the past 3 years. And it just really showed within this episode, and it really did help Romeo when they had the little swimming practice match. Even though Iwatobi lost, it actually pumped up Romeo to do even better and not to be scared on when to start during a race. So we can see, hopefully KyoAni will be able to show more of Iwatobi for later episodes and show more of an improvement. Not only that, they mentioned that Nagisa was going to go to places during the summer, meaning that he has been improving dramatically in his breaststroke, and clearly we saw he is the fastest swimmer in Iwatobi. I believe Rei is the second fastest on their team, and I want to know, what are they planning to do in particular, because Rei and Nagisa are in their 3rd year. What is KyoAni going to do with these 2 characters, because we haven't heard any mentions of their futures, what they want to do after high school. So I don't know what they're going to do for future episodes in regards to these 2 characters, and what they're going to do with her, because she is a 3rd year as well. Then we had where Sosuke and Natsuo were talking in the lounge room about, what they're trying to do for their future. I forgot the quote that Natsuo told Sosuke, but I think it was along the lines of improving oneself, something of that sort. I forgot what the quote was, but it was from Mikael, the same person he wanted to coach him back in episode 3, but he didn't because he saw that Natsuo wanted to do something else. And it came to the point in the episode where he tried to do a bet with Sosuke with a coin, saying that whichever hand you choose, the one that has the coin in it, is you're going to make this decision to go with the surgery in hopes that you can potentially become a competitive swimmer. Now, it was mentioned but never really overly stated, the word surgery, in last week's episode, but if you was reading and understand the context, Sosuke was given the option that he can still continue to rehab but can be a competitive swimmer, or he can go with surgery with higher chances of going into the professional world of swimming. So Sosuke, in a way, chose but didn't choose the hand that had the coin from Natsuo, but he said, I decide what I want to do with my future. And basically it's to say that he's going for it with the surgery. Now, I'm actually excited but also scared because we don't know what direction KyoAni is planning for Sosuke's character, because this reminds me of season 2 episode 13, the last episode of season 2, where because he was so gung-ho about swimming with Rin on the professional stage, that when he injured his shoulder, he was at a stalemate. He didn't know what to do with his life. As we clearly saw back in season 2, he was just standing looking out into the sea, and he didn't know what to do with his life. But this episode gave him the ultimatum that he is the chooser of what he wants to do with his life, and he chose that he's going to go underneath the knife to better his shoulder for a better future, something that he's been aiming for many years, and that's to swim alongside Rin. So I don't know what they're going to do with Sosuke's character. I'm really glad that they came with a closure and gave Sosuke something to do with his life, and just instead of just wandering aimlessly, picking between whether he should do something with swimming or he shouldn't do something with swimming. I'm actually glad KyoAni used this episode to give Sosuke that closure, but it's now what they're going to do with him after this. Are we going to see where he's going to go to the hospital and proceed with the surgery? What they're going to do with him, I don't know. I'm excited, but I'm also scared. But I hope they don't cut him off and throw him to the wind in this season. Bring more Sosuke, bring more of what they're going to do with him in the forefront. So, and I like the fact that Natsuo seemed to be that voice of reason for Sosuke, to tell him, this is what you need to do, and what you do with your life is up to you. So I like the fact that these two had a conversation, and hopefully they do interact once again in the future. Now, something that also is both exciting and scary was the fact that we saw Nao by the end of this episode, and the fact that Misaki was the person to see his old coach, and Makoto saw him as well. So if you saw Starting Days, you know exactly what I'm talking about. These two had a conversation back in Starting Days, and that led to Makoto making his decision in regards of swimming and Haru. So my guess is, in next week's episode, we may see in between that episode of him and Nao speaking with each other for the first time in nearly 6 years. And also for the fact that if you saw the preview, I don't usually say this for this particular show, but next week is going to focus on Hiyori's and Ikia's childhood. Now, this is going to be that episode that's going to actually answer some questions in regards to their characters and why they act the way they do currently. Now, I know that the fandom doesn't particularly like these two characters, especially Hiyori, but hopefully this episode will answer some questions. I mean, it's not to say that what he is doing is right, but we can see what leads up to who they are at present time. So if you guys saw this week's episode of Free Dive to the Future, episode 5, do tell me in the comment section below on how you felt about this week's episode. What were some of your most favorite moments, and what do you think they're going to do with these characters in particular? And what do you think about the ending of this episode? And you can check out the links in the description box. And I'm Kimmy, channel of Anime Legends Podcast, and I will see you guys later. Bye!